Tetris is a game known the world over, and a game that you've probably played at some point in your life. You may have also heard of, or even experienced, the phenomenon known as the Tetris effect, whereby playing Tetris for prolonged periods of time can impact your thoughts, mental processes, and even dreams. So maybe you found yourself dreaming of Tetris shapes and colours, or even found yourself looking at things and noticing patterns and how shapes might fit together, just like Tetris blocks. If you have, don't worry, it's very common. It's been coined game transfer phenomena, and it has been suggested that 96% of those who have played video games will have experienced it at some point in their life. In fact, even those with anterograde amnesia, which means they're unable to form new memories, have claimed to experience dreams of falling shapes, despite having no memory of even playing Tetris. And if that's not enough, not only has Tetris shown to decrease drug, food and other types of cravings, but there is also growing evidence to suggest that Tetris can help with post-traumatic stress disorder. It's suggested that around 70% of people will experience or witness a traumatic event at some point in their life, with 1 in 3 of those who experience a trauma meeting the diagnostic criteria for PTSD. There are numerous types of trauma someone might experience, including but not limited to physical or sexual violence, natural disasters, traffic collisions, accidents that lead to injury to oneself or others, a life-threatening illness, loss of loved ones, and many more. And whilst for many it's a one-off incident, others may experience multiple traumas, or even traumas that happen over a period of time. Post-traumatic stress disorder includes a wide range of symptoms. One of the most commonly known is flashbacks, which occur as rather vivid and involuntary intrusive memories. But other key difficulties people experience include avoidance, such as avoiding the location of where an incident took place, as well as environments, objects or people that remind them of the trauma, and hyperarousal, which includes hypervigilance, being easily startled, irritability or anger, sleep disturbance and concentration difficulties. Support for PTSD is usually focused on tertiary treatment methods, i.e. cure rather than prevention. Guidance in England from the National Institute of Health and Care Excellence, commonly known as NICE, suggests the use of cognitive behavioural therapy and EMDR, or eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, as evidence-based approaches for PTSD treatment in adults. It's worth noting that they do not suggest the use of benzodiazepines such as diazepam and temazepam. Of course, one of the drawbacks of any type of psychological support is that some people don't receive adequate treatment, which itself leads to high levels of suffering and a whole range of other costs. Further to that, there is often limited availability when it comes to qualified therapists, leading to waits for treatment and a requirement to talk in detail about the traumatic events themselves. So what if there was a way to prevent PTSD symptoms despite experiencing trauma? Well, that's what one Oxford study explored in 2017 via a randomised control trial. It was hypothesised that engaging in a cognitively demanding visuospatial task within hours of a trauma, that it could reduce the likelihood of PTSD by preventing or reducing intrusive memories. And of course, Tetris was the perfect candidate for this task. The way it worked is that motor vehicle accident survivors presenting at an A&E department of an Oxford hospital were invited to take part in the study. Those who were asked and agreed had all been seen within 6 hours of leaving the scene of the incident, which is important for something we'll come back to later. A total of 71 individuals were split into 2 groups. One, a control group, were given a written activity to complete. The other group focused on the intervention being studied. This comprised of 2 key components. Firstly, a reminder cue for the traumatic event. This required participants to think back to the incident and describe the worst moments of the trauma to the researcher, which was then followed by playing Tetris on a Nintendo DS XL for no less than 10 minutes and up to 20 minutes. So what did they find? Well, in line with their predictions, those who participated in Tetris playing identified significantly fewer intrusive memories in the week after the traumatic event. In fact, intrusive memories were reduced by 62% compared to the control group. So how did it work? Well, in line with memory consolidation theory, it is suggested that there is a window of opportunity within hours of a traumatic event where memory is malleable to change, and due to the visually demanding nature of Tetris, it's suggested that this disrupts fear memory consolidation. In a simple way, the brain is busy playing Tetris, and so this competition for resources impacts the brain's way of processing the memory of what happened in a way that leads to less intrusive memories like flashbacks. Got it? Good. What it does suggest is that a brief, timely, minimally intrusive, easily administered yet scientific intervention could have a substantial impact of improving the mental health of individuals who have recently experienced a traumatic event. Thanks, Tetris. But that's not all. In fact, it opens up plenty of questions. What would happen if you played Tetris for longer, or on more than one occasion? Would it reduce the occurrence of intrusive memories even further? Can improvements be sustained after a month or longer? And could it help with PTSD, which by their very nature are older memories of traumatic events? There are a couple of things I want to touch upon before exploring PTSD. There is an important difference between intrusive memories and voluntarily recalled memories. Intrusive memories involuntarily come to mind, may include the emotions experienced at the time of the trauma event and other sensory experiences like smells, sounds and tastes. Not only that, but this isn't about erasing memories. In fact, it's argued that this is an unhelpful consideration, as memory of a traumatic event may be important in a legal case. In fact, it's suggested that erasing memories wouldn't necessarily lead to reduced distress, as examples of individuals where explicit memory is lost, i.e. during loss of consciousness, can be considerably distressing. Okay, so where were we? Yes. Could this approach help with PTSD, which by their very nature are older memories of traumatic events? Well, a further study was undertaken to explore that very consideration, but not only did it include long-standing PTSD, but also complex PTSD. Complex PTSD often includes trauma events which occurred in childhood, but also includes difficulties in emotional regulation, self-perception, and interpersonal factors. Now you might be thinking, but didn't earlier studies work on the basis that memory alteration is possible within a certain window of opportunity? Well, yes, but the researchers also suggested that there is evidence that explores other time windows in which memory can be altered if the memory is reactivated using a reminder cue. What this essentially means is that by having the trauma victim bring their trauma memory to mind, another window of opportunity is opened, allowing the modification of emotional intrusive memories, thus leading to a reduction in intrusive memories of the trauma event. The process was similar as before, but with some slight changes. There was no control group, and the participants were instructed with writing down a moment of the trauma in a third-person narrative, with as much detail as possible to remember the event, but not so much that it would be emotionally overwhelming. Participants were then tasked with playing Tetris for 25 minutes. This was continued for around 5 to 10 weeks. Whilst the initial trial was with a small sample group, results showcase some encouraging evidence that this simple intervention of a memory reminder and Tetris gameplay led to a reduction of intrusive memories of trauma. Impressive, no? Considering the study was based on participants with complex PTSD, this certainly shows promise. Although further research is definitely required, it's still early days and there's a number of considerations that would need to be explored in future studies. If, however, further studies continue to showcase the worth in such a novel and simple approach, it could have a benefit for not only people who experience a trauma, but those who go on to experience PTSD, even if it's long-standing and complex. And all that it might require is a notepad and pen and a copy of Tetris. Oh, and something to play it on, of course. As mentioned earlier in the video, trauma survivors with PTSD symptoms are likely to experience symptoms other than just flashbacks, including avoidance and hyperarousal, which isn't something that's directly targeted within this approach. Still, it's early days, so who knows what might come up in further research. If you yourself have experienced a trauma and you've recognised some of the symptoms I've mentioned in this video, is something I'd suggest speaking to a medical professional about. In the UK, you can self-refer to an IAP service and discuss with them any difficulties you're experiencing, which goes for mental health difficulties in general and not just PTSD. I can't really suggest you copy the study, and whilst I wouldn't expect Tetris to have any detrimental impact, if you have any concerns, it's worth speaking to a trained professional, even if your concerns end up being unfounded. If you've made it to the end of my video, thank you. I'd really appreciate it if you did like the video, or if at least you found something informative or helpful, that you give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Especially if you're keen to see more of this type of thing. I put an extreme amount of effort into trying to get the tone of this video right. I'm looking to do a number of videos on video games psychological principles, so please subscribe and click the alert thingy so you get an update when they are released. Also, please leave a comment if you have any questions and I will try to answer where and when I can. I do work in the psychology field, so I am somewhat experienced with trauma and PTSD. There is a bibliography for this video, which I can't put in the description because it's too long, so I'll put it in a Word document for anyone who's interested. Aside from that, thank you again for watching, stay safe and look after yourself.